This is the Word Slinger Podcast, Episode 11, American Manufacturing Revolution with Kevin Faul. This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by my new book, Sawyer Jackson and the Shadows Straight. Follow Sawyer Jackson into yet another tangle in Book 2 of the Sawyer Jackson series. You can find it on Amazon.com or on my site, kevintumlinson.com/books.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, it's me again. But you knew that already, right? You tuned in on purpose, right? If you're tuning in by accident, hi, welcome, and that's weird. Also, thank you for being here and for listening to me and for possibly ranking me on iTunes, which I really need. If you want to promote this show and help support this show, one of the best ways you can do that is go on iTunes, find the Word Slinger Podcast, and give me some stars and give me a nice review, and I'll love you forever. And that's all it took to buy my love. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, this week, man, I have got a show that I love. Every week I have a show I love, but this week I've got a topic that is, sorry about that, I cleared my throat right in your ear. I've got a topic that is just really near and dear to my heart, because I've always been a maker. Like, I've always been into the maker movement. I kind of got into it very young, actually. I used to tinker around and build stuff. And, I would sneak into my grandfather's tool shed. And my grandfather had this huge pile of junk. I mean, it was just, anything you could imagine. Old plumbing parts, pieces from old electronics, old radios and things like that were discarded. And, junk tools and bits of wire and rope and what have you. And, that was just sort of a parts bin. I mean, it was, my grandfather grew up in the Depression era, and he saved everything and he reused everything. And, that kind of rubbed off on me. I was raised by my grandparents, and I was constantly spending time out in that tool shed, tinkering and building stuff, mostly trying to build an airplane or something, or a time machine or a spaceship or something. But, and I never succeeded on any of those, not entirely, but a kid can dream. So I had a blast doing that stuff when I was a kid. I grew up with a working knowledge of tools and basic tools. I mean, I would still love to get into like machining metal and doing the really cool stuff that you see like prop builders do. But I do understand one thing, and that is electricity, which is, sounds pretty basic, doesn't it? But, the truth is a lot of people don't understand electricity. It's taken for granted because it's just there. It's a flip of a switch. It's shoving something in the wall. It's sticking some batteries into something. And, it's so pervasive, and it is intertwined with literally every part of your life. Every part of my life, definitely. I got a little doohickey in my chest. You may or may not know, because I have a birth defect in my heart, and I had to have a pacemaker put in when I was in my late 30s, and that it's not a defibrillating pacemaker or anything. It's not going to go off and shock me, but it helps compensate for I have a bradycardia, which is like a gradual slowing of the heart, and the pacemaker helps to compensate for, it's called an AV block, and it's basically a signal block from my brain to my heart, and this thing kind of helps regulate my heartbeat and keeps me going. So I literally have electricity in my body, an electronic device in my body, helping keep me alive. So, and as you can imagine, I'm a little fond of that. So I like living. The conversation this week, though, has nothing to do with pacemakers per se, but it has everything to do with innovation, which is another huge topic I love. My guest this week is Kevin Faul, who is he's the founder of Conway Electric, and you can find him online at conwaygoods.com. And then on that site, the first thing you're going to see, if depending on when you go, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more offered on that site soon. But if you go check out conwayelectric.com, I'm sorry, conwaygoods.com, if you go check that out, you're going to see a whole lot of these really cool retro outlets, extension cords. Okay, now that doesn't sound like it would be all that exciting, but you go check this out and then watch some videos on how they make the stuff and what they're doing with it, and then you'll really appreciate this interview because I can tell Kevin is he's a kindred soul. He's got an awesome name, which helps, but also he's kind of a fan of the sort of Benjamin Franklin and Tesla and Edison and this group of guys who invented the world we live in. They're the guys who said, I wonder what the world would be like if this existed. And then they went and tried and tried and tried, and they built it. That's Kevin Faul. He's doing the same thing with what he's building here. He's building a business, but he's created something unique. Unique is kind of that's an interesting term to apply to it because it is unique. I don't see products like this everywhere. I haven't yet to lay my hands on one to really try it out, but I am so fascinated and in love with the product because of its design, which I'm a huge fan of design and designing to a user experience. And that's exactly what Kevin's done with this. So I'm going to let him talk now. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you loved this interview. I loved it. If you have a question for me or for Kevin, we're on a time delay, but I can still get it to him, and I might even be able to get him back on the air to talk about it. But go to wordslingerpodcast.com. Actually, you know what? That site's still under construction, so let's just go back to kevintomlinson.com/podcast, where you can leave me a voicemail, either using your computer or using an actual phone line, or you can send me an email right from that page. So, and you can check out other past episodes of the Wordslinger podcast from there as well. So go check that out. Take a listen to Kevin Faul from Conway Electric about the American manufacturing revolution. All right, hi everybody. We're here with, he's got the best first name ever, Kevin Faul of Conway Electric, and and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the American manufacturing revolution, and in particular his company, which you guys do some cool work, man.
Thank you.
Noticed your now these are the stuff I'm noticing. What am I going to refer to them as? Are they outlet like extension outlets, or like what would you call them?
Sure, you can call them. Sure, we call them modern electrical extensions.
Okay.
You can call them electrical fixtures, extension cords.
And they're very cool.
Any of those will do.
Yeah,
Thank
they've
you.
got that sort of chic, chic/industrial look.
Yeah, definitely drawn a lot of inspiration from industry, and there's a reason for that. There's stories behind it, which maybe we can get into. But
Sure.
Thank you very much. It's been the product has done very well, and we're excited about all the directions we can take the product and the company in the future.
Yeah, I watched. Now, okay, you guys are getting more of a presence on social media. You and I talked a little bit about that just before the show, but that's where I first discovered you. Actually, a friend forwarded one of the videos on Facebook, and I saw sort of the manufacturing and everything. And you guys do something very cool, in my opinion. Like it's got a sort of vintage feel to it, and you're the equipment you're using is sort of, I don't know if this is going to be the right term, but to me it feels old school. Like it's the sort of thing that, they used to build really strong, reliable products in America, and now, it's always quick manufacturing, cheap as possible. But this has more of a personal touch to it, in my opinion. Is that kind of the vibe you guys were going for?
Thank you. Yeah, that's intentional as well. A big trend over the last many years, and I have a background in technology, and we tend to go the technological route with everything, and it's kind of pushed out into the market, and we have our iPhones and our Galaxy phones and all of these different technologies that we're hit with every day. And you look at even cars like the Tesla. You get in, it's a sleek car with a modern touch interface, and that's great. What we found is over time, some of that design kind of ages disgracefully.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back in the 1950s or 60s, the things that were really modern at the time, um, they age, and some of them age very well. But when they're too focused on being, really modern and sleek, over time, you can see that they almost look trendy,
Yeah.
and they date themselves. And when I designed this product, the Exto, which was our flagship product, I really wanted something that was both functional as well as friendly. And by using more natural materials, by using reliable materials, by designing it for a lifetime of use as opposed to just a few months to a couple of years, uh, we found that not only do we get sort of a more friendly product, but we get a product that's really unique in a lot of different aspects, and we think it's timeless as well. And that timeless aspect is so important, particularly when you're talking about electricity. So it's very intentional. Everything we're doing is meant to be more friendly. It's meant to be, when you look at it, you want to touch it, or
Yeah.
you want it near you. You
Yeah.
want it in your home. And that's the biggest thing. The biggest reason we pursued this idea initially is that of all things in your home, probably one of the worst things are the electrical
Mm-hmm.
extensions. Like, who likes extension cords? Like power strips, extension cords, they're just hideous,
I
right?
have a great collection of vintage extension cords with that construction orange.
Yes, the popular construction orange. Maybe in a few years we'll bring that back as a retro product. Be like the collectible orange
There you go.
construction extension
Complete
cord.
with the sort of, it's required to have that black grime all over the cord that comes from, just mysteriously comes from nowhere.
Yes, yes, and it's probably in a we'll pre-tangle it before we box it up.
Perfect. So yeah, this is like functional art, man. I showed this to my wife, who is actually in the interior design industry.
Hmm.
She's from the side of interior design that does like office spaces and hospitals, and they do some cool stuff, but it's always like very uniform and everything. And she really dug this. Like, she thought these were just perfect for especially for like desktop, because the thing is, I go out of my way and try everything I can think of to hide my little extension cord, ugly beige looking plastic extension, So this is something I'd actually put out for display, I think.
I think that's the best compliment you could give us, and thank you. And that's really been the response that's caused the product to take off, and frankly, for this to become not just a product, but an actual business, and a rapidly growing business.
Right.
And we're using that momentum to tell kind of the story of why we're doing that. And one of the most interesting things about electricity, because isn't it true? Don't we all just try to hide that electrical,
Yeah.
the electricity? I mean, even wall outlets,
Right.
they're hideous. Like, you look at them, and nobody says, like, look at my beautiful wall outlet. A number of industries are kind of trying to make these trendy wall outlet designs and things, but nobody kind of shows them off and says, like, look how great this is. And I think that's a tragedy, frankly. I think, given the history of electricity in the United States, we've really overlooked what should be something that's totally heralded, not just individually, but nationally as a country. And the reason I say that is that, in the 1740s, a lot of experiments were going on with electricity. Static electricity and things were observations out in the world. And there was a product called a Leyden jar battery.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who's become very famous since then that spent a lot of time starting to mess around with Leyden jar batteries. And he actually is the reason that we use the term lightning in a bottle today. We've all heard that term, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so this guy actually took a Leyden jar battery, which is basically glass bottle with some metal on the inside, some metal on the outside, and a little stopper on top with a wire that goes down into the bottle when it's full of water, and that will actually collect a charge. And this guy, his name was Benjamin Franklin. He's the guy that flew a kite up into a lightning storm and collected electricity using a key that had a wire dropping down into a Leyden jar battery. And that those experiments, a series of experiments he performed in the 1740s using Leyden jar batteries, became a book from letters that he wrote back and forth with a scientist in London named Peter Collinson. And he and Peter corresponded for a while, to the point where Peter said, these letters are so important, I need to publish them. I need to get them published as a book. And so he published them as sort of a short reader in Europe. And they became the foundation for what would become modern electrical methods, including all of the terms that we use today, like conductor, the references to positive charge and the fact that something has a charge or is conductive, etc. And so Benjamin Franklin, just out of his own curiosity in Philadelphia, wrote these letters back and forth with Peter, and they were published in a publication called that was subsequently called Experiments and Observations on Electricity Made at Philadelphia in America. I think it's something along those lines. Yeah, and if you think about that, the remarkable thing is, one person who's become known as one of the founding fathers of the United States through his casual and highly curious observations, and then recording those observations, became the foundation for what is today driving every technology we're using for our economy. So, what started as Leyden jar batteries and collecting charges from lightning into a bottle, literally, is now the power that drives all the servers that power Google and Facebook and Amazon, and is powering the Skype call that we're on right now. And to think that even some of the methods described in those early publications are still around today, I think is incredible. And I think it's a travesty and a tragedy, honestly, that we don't treat electricity with sort of a more renowned spirit. And I think there are things that are happening today. There's, the Oatmeal, which is a publication online. I'm not sure if you are you familiar with the Oatmeal?
Yeah. I actually know the guy, yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, I've met him. I'm not going to claim that I'm like buddies with him, but I've met him.
Right. Well, I'm a big fan, and I became a really big fan after his whole Tesla. Let's build a damn Tesla museum, right?
Yeah.
And so, with the attention that's sort of being gained and earned back to the big experimenters and scientists in the electrical world, and the work that Elon Musk is doing on Tesla automobiles, etc., I think it's bringing integrity back to electricity. And personally, I went to Home Depot looking for an extension cord because for many years I was an executive at a technology company. You know how you can be doing something full time, but there's always things that maybe are unfulfilled in your life. And for me, that was building things. I grew up building things with my hands. My dad was an engineer. We had a lot of tools in the basement, and I felt unfulfilled outside of work, because I felt like technology was great. Doing business deals and things was a lot of fun. You're having great conversations. You're flying all over the place, seeing new cities. But building something tangible with your hands is there's nothing like it. And so on the side, I was like building furniture, and my furniture was getting more and more elaborate, and I was starting to use mixed materials. And so I had moved from LA to Boulder to work out of an office for our company that was in Boulder. And while I was there, I built this floor lamp that was kind of my greatest work to date, personally. There was an old guy a few blocks away from where I had this loft in Boulder that was this amazing welder, and he welded up this spine for this floor lamp, and I poured the base in cast concrete and had some tubing in it and ran some really cool wire that had this sort of woven covering. I went to Home Depot to get this extension cord, and it all hit me at the same time. Knowing a little bit about Tesla, the scientist, and Benjamin Franklin's work, and having been to the Henry Ford Museum outside Detroit, Michigan, and seeing Edison Laboratory there, etc. It's just kind of like you want more. You want something that's really cool. So I was looking for a cool extension cord and nothing existed. And you're looking at the shelf and you're looking at, $6 extension cord that's made in Thailand or China or Indonesia. And it's just the bottom of the barrel. I mean, these things couldn't be made any cheaper. They couldn't
Yeah.
be any uglier. There couldn't be any less integrity in them. And then, you think about the important questions, like my father owned a small business in our home growing up, and he was a net exporter of his products, and that literally put food on our table. And you think about, where these products are coming from, what conditions they're made in, and it's just horrible, and you can't get any information on that. So
Yeah.
when I saw that, the problem was just glaringly obvious to me. So the product is not so much kind of like contrived from an intention to just, make a really cool design out of nothing. It's like all of this stuff hit me in one sort of microsecond, almost like a bolt of lightning, as I'm standing there in Home Depot looking at this shelf of horrible extension cords. And I just thought, there's got to be something better. And knowing what my dad did and things, I just started experimenting and putting pieces together. And that was the initial sort of source of what became the product in the company today. And it's gained such momentum. We want to take this philosophy of making things in America, bringing back integrity to something that was invented in America, back to things that we interact with every day.
Yeah, and I love that because that's missing. I mean, I'm a big freak about iPhone and my MacBook and everything, and I love living in the future. Okay, I mean, this call that we're making right now, this interview and the podcast that comes out of it. I used to work in radio years ago, and it cost thousands of dollars a month to do what I'm doing now for practically free with this technology. So I'm a huge fan of that, but I miss the sort of hands-on kind of technology that I kind of grew up with, and like you, I used to build things and tinker with things, and I have a top 5 list of geniuses, and Tesla's on it, and so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, and that's what this sort of harkens back for me, to see this. It's a story in and of itself, frankly. I mean, I look at it and just see a story. It's just fascinating, and the idea of the American manufacturing revolution. Like you used that phrase in an email, and now I've just glommed onto it. But I mean, how do you see that resonates with me, and it resonates with a lot of people I know. So how do you see this fitting into that story?
So isn't it amazing that we can be doing something, that you as an individual can do something, and you can almost syndicate
Yeah.
a radio program inexpensively, very little startup costs, using
Mm-hmm.
a mobile device, a handheld device that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
It's amazing, right?
Right.
I love that too. Never before has there been a better time to start and scale something than there is today.
Mm-hmm.
With all the technologies out there, and with things that, even a few years ago, and if you read about the founding of Facebook, their initial investment from a very successful technology investor and technologist, Peter Thiel, was not to finance a bunch of extra workers and salespeople. It was to buy servers to serve and host the content so that they could continue their growth.
Right.
And today, those server farms, Facebook has their own warehouse, and they're obviously multi-billion-dollar business, and one of the most successful business stories perhaps of our time. But the amazing thing is, even that technology now is in remote server farms, so that one or two people can start projects or products
Right.
that don't require that massive infrastructure. And so, it all goes back to electricity and opportunity and connecting opportunities. And we use a phrase, a tagline called "Power to the People." So, if you're on Instagram, you can look us up. Our username is Conway Electric, all one word, and we'll hashtag things with "Power to the People." And it's not just sort of a play on words of actually physically bringing power to the people, but it's about saying, listen, if you have an idea, go for it right now.
Yeah.
If you want to do a podcast, do a podcast. If you have an idea for an application, don't listen to the people saying no, that's a bad idea. Most amazing ideas, most of the best ideas in the world initially start out looking like bad ideas. And power to the people is to say, you know what, own your idea. If you have an idea, go for it. There's never been a better time to develop something, because there's never been a better time for it to be cheaper, faster. Never can you scale to the degree that you can today. And that's true in both, the virtual world of software as well as the physical world. How many times in history have you been able to jump on Google and find out, where you can source things,
Yeah.
and start discussions with companies across the country? We can look someone up and we can contact them where they're a small company that no one's, they don't even have a website, and you can find them and get in touch with them and start a relationship with them. And so, the revolution is the availability of information, and you're only limited by the ideas that you have. And so, you know, power to the people, which we're tagging our photos with and trying to use as our mantra broadly, and communicate that mantra, or we are using as our mantra, and we're broadly communicating that out. We're hoping to inspire a number of people that, whether it's an extension cord or something totally new, they should go after it. And so, the manufacturing revolution in America is partially about, bringing work back to the United States. Like, why are extension cords made overseas? There's
Yeah.
one reason only. It's been a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
What can we do cheaper, faster, better? And it's really, really hard to make, a $6 extension cord in a factory in the United States when you're paying a worker $15 an hour, which, is a livable wage. Yet people are buying this stuff. They're not thinking about the fact that, someone made this who is literally making cents a day. And we don't even know what's in the product. In a lot of
Yeah.
products, they use lead as a softener. And I guarantee, all the extension cords that are coming into the country, they aren't testing each one of those for the presence of lead and things like that. And so, coming full circle, the manufacturing revolution in America is on a broader scale, where it's like there should be things that can easily be made here, or more difficult, or things that are harder to make here, but they should be made here anyway. And the most important message is that anything is possible right now, and using some of the technology that's at your fingertips, you can start something and build something very quickly. And that's true for me and this extension cord project, which will grow into many other things. Maybe we can touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
all the way down to, the opportunities for small companies that have been doing the same things for 50 years that now have access to information to reach new markets and find new customers. And, the best thing we could do is bring work back to the United States, where we're employing more of our friends and neighbors in our local cities and building something that gives back.
And you're not just bringing back manufacturing and working from that angle. You're also promoting like local stores. Like you mentioned before the call that you guys have on your website. There's a link called Stores, and that helps you find local stores that sell your product. So you guys are supporting local economy that way as well.
Yeah, and if you go into a lot of those stores, which are primarily high quality retail
Mm-hmm.
boutiques. So they're retailers who are curating products from, call them makers, call them small batch or artisanal manufacturers. We fall into kind of a bunch of different categories. So people use a lot of different words for us and for the company that we're privileged to be with in these stores. But if you go into these stores, you'll see the type of revolution I'm talking about.
Yeah.
More and more people are taking advantage of their abilities to source and make things here in the United States, and they're making amazing products out of materials like ceramic and leather and wool. Faribault Mills, for example, out of Minnesota, is such a perfect example of a company that's been around for a long time, that's finding new markets and new opportunities because of the ability to share information over social networks and things like that. And these local stores are, maybe they're owned by a husband and wife that have
Yeah.
amazing taste. But every time you buy a product through that store, you're supporting your local community. You're supporting the makers that are making really high quality products that are going into those stores. And you're also supporting the entire supply chain that's behind those products. So,
Yeah.
not only is Conway Electric, for example, my business that is employs myself, for example, and is contracting other people, but we use over 20 vendors for all the parts that go into our products. And so, at the factories that we're contracted with, they've hired more people specifically to work on our product lines full time. Those are, people in some cases in their early to mid 20s who just graduated college that or are looking to save up for college,
Hmm.
and they're getting, livable wages to make something great, and they're using supplies from, 20 different vendors across the United States. It's supporting a whole meshed network of opportunities, and so every dollar that's spent there gives money straight back to the communities, and it doesn't go into sort of some unknown vacuum of products. And I know the international marketplace. I helped turn around about a $50 million company several years ago, and we were sourcing from. We owned a factory in, not, it wasn't my company, but I worked for the company, and they owned a factory in Mexico, and they contracted manufacturing in China and Vietnam. And I would fly over to Vietnam and set up factories for new products, and I deal with the factories in China for samples and all this stuff. And I'd go to Mexico 5 or 6 times a year to visit that factory. That's great, except in a lot of those cases, not this company in particular, they're pretty good, but a lot of companies are cutting corners.
Yeah.
We've all heard horror stories about technology manufacturing in China, things like that. And so by giving back to the local communities, you're really providing opportunity, both near term and in the future, to the store owners, the direct makers of those products, and then the entire supply chain. So it's an additive effect that happens.
Yeah. It's amazing how it stacks up too, and it doesn't take much. And I think that the in the past, I know I'm guilty of this too. Okay, so I'm not coming down on anybody, but it's just sometimes it's just easier to go buy, say, the cheap, you know, $2 or $3 extension cord for your needs, and you don't think about what goes into that or what didn't go into that, and who's missing out by not being a little bit more of a discerning shopper.
It's
So
it's it's true, and there's a balance.
yeah,
And what we try to do with our product is make a product for a lifetime.
yeah,
So we've heard a lot of different descriptions of our product, especially when it was new and the first sort of media outlets were finding our product. I remember the first magazine, which was based here in Seattle, called the product. Uh, I think it was called Adorably Retro and Hugely Clunky. And the reason she called it that was because she never actually picked it up and used it. She
hmm,
took some pictures of it in the store and then, wrote her review. And it was almost an insulting review of all of these products in these stores, of how, they're kind of like, call it retro inspired products where they're using more natural materials and things like that. But at the base of it, I think what she missed is that people are really looking for high quality things that aren't gonna just last a week or two
right,
or a month or two. It's, buy this once and it's gonna last me literally a lifetime.
yeah,
And the reason what she called hugely clunky, which is our cast aluminum stainless steel box that houses our outlets, we actually use that because it's heavier
yeah,
and it's almost indestructible, to the point where Underwriters Laboratories, the testing facility that you have to put pretty much anything electrical through if you ever want to sell it in something,
yeah. That
in
little
something.
UL sticker that comes on everything.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so important. They pre-test everything. So our product was so, I'm going to call it bomb proof, that they ended their testing early and they passed it because they said these tests aren't applicable. Your product is so good. We're going to streamline this process. So they did, burn tests and pull tests and things like that. And when it came to things like crush tests, and they basically looked at the infrastructure and they're like, "You're good to go. We've never seen a small company go through with the detail that you've implemented in this product, and we've never seen a company your size go through faster and achieve better results,
Yeah.
which was the best compliment we could get. But the reason we did that wasn't even to achieve the UL results. That was a side effect. It's because one of the most annoying things about extension cords is you go to plug your phone in, you put the end of the cord on the table, you plug your phone in, the extension cord flops off, it
Yeah.
pulls your phone onto the floor, and that whole flop effect we call, our box anti-flop technology. So it's heavier, so you can literally place it on a table and it's not going to flop off.
Yeah.
You can even pick the extension cord up and the outlet end of the cord is going to stay in place because it solves one of the most annoying problems of extension cords. And I would suggest, if you really can't afford something like our product, then don't buy it. We don't want someone to sacrifice in order to buy our product. Everybody is struggling to make a living. Everybody's struggling to kind of get by, and by no means would I ever suggest that they put themselves out to support something that is way outside their price range. So sometimes you have to make sacrifices and you have to buy that cheap thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to, in many cases, when you buy that cheap thing, you have to buy that cheap thing 10 times,
Yeah.
which ends up costing you more than if you just bought the good thing once.
Right. And
So I think we're all guilty of it,
Yeah.
but what we're trying to do is just make something that lasts forever.
I think one of the things I love about it so far is it reminds me of, because there was a time where you judged the quality of a product by its heft and its, that feel of it being substantial, and
Yeah.
that's been missing for for a very long time. Like, everything's gotten smaller and lighter, and some of that's to be expected. But when you come across truly innovative products, or anything that's got real user experience in mind when you design it. And I'm thinking now in terms of like design thinking from like IDEO and groups like that. I mean, anytime you encounter a product that's been designed with those principles in mind, you feel it instantly and you love it, right? And that was the
So
case
true.
with, like, the iPod, and there was an attention to detail and quality that went into that was behind the scenes as well as up front. So you sense it, and that's what I've gotten. Now, I haven't laid my hands on one of these yet. You don't have a store in Houston, by the way. There are no local stores for me to go
No,
check this out.
Yeah, part of our growth has been limited by our capacity.
Yeah.
We're using our factory is in downtown Seattle. Like, how many factories do you know of that are in, like, it's on the North Shore of Lake Union in Seattle. Like, how many factories do you know of that are, like, actually in an urban area today?
Yeah.
So, part of the challenge in making something in America is finding the resources and then being able to scale those resources, because so much of that work has been put overseas.
Yeah.
And working on a very limited budget. Like, I'm not I was an executive at a tech company, but I'm not a rich guy. I'm financing this myself. It's a pretty crazy sort of entrepreneurial story where I'm pouring 100% of the effort into this project, and we're limited by the capacity of the factory. And part of the reasons we're not in more stores in New York and Houston, for example, is that we hadn't been able to produce fast enough. As we
Yeah.
see more success, we're able to ramp up. And our dream and our goal is that, if people are coming and buying our product and supporting us, it's the best thing they can do, because I'm not putting that money into a fourth or fifth home. I'm putting that money straight back into hiring more people, or getting more supplies so that we can increase inventory, so that we can sell more. Every time the factory hires people, that means that we have to have X number of units going through the factory. And so every dollar that's spent, we're reinvesting back into that whole process. So as people buy our products, we'll grow. And that's the only reason we're not in more stores, is that we've been limited in capacity. But we're just now turning the corner with support of the companies like Shinola, which is one of the fastest growing brands in the United States. The founder of Shinola has been very supportive of us, gave us our first sort of big order as a company when we were still just like a month old. We're just going into initial production, and we sent them some prototypes and just said, hey, we love what you guys are doing. And they said, oh my gosh, we love this design. We'd love to do something with you. They gave us a big PO. The product's doing well for them. And it's that type of relationship that's allowing us to grow as well. So as we grow, you'll see more stores in Houston and things. But we'll have to fix that. We'll have to get one in your hands.
So, how, with all that in mind, how scalable is this really? I mean, when it comes down to it, there's going to be a friction point where as you increase the ability to manufacture more, aren't you going to lose some of the quality that makes this special, like the almost sort of hand-built type quality that's part of it?
That's a great question. And the cool thing about this is that since I worked in several manufacturing environments in my past, I did a consulting project where I helped convert Nike's golf club factory from batch to lean manufacturing to improve output. So when I did that, Nike was making their golf clubs in Tigard, Oregon. I bet nobody knows that
Nope.
Nike golf clubs are actually made in the USA at that time. And then I helped turn this company around that I mentioned earlier, where part of that process was adjusting their manufacturing. I wasn't overseeing that direct portion of it. I was more on the product side, where we launched more new products in 1 year than the past 15 years of the company's history. And a big part of that secret to success was lining up the manufacturing process to make sure that the throughput could increase while the profitability increased. And so I'm taking all those philosophies that I worked on there, and I'm applying them to this business. So the better we do, it's actually the opposite problem. When you're small, it's really hard to go from zero to, a small number of units, because you're too small to get anybody's interest, but you're too, but you if you have a burning desire for the idea, it's like you want to see it, or you want to pursue it. And so you've got this problem. As you start to grow, if you have a good model in place, you actually have the opposite problem. It's almost like you can grow much faster when you start to grow than you can just going from like 0 to 100 or 1,000 units. So right now we're sitting on this inflection point where our growth is actually not so. Sorry about the train going by, but
That's okay.
Our growth is actually looking better and better the bigger we're getting. But we plan on keeping the same methods in place. The methods are scalable. It's just getting the space to be a little bit bigger, getting more hands on the product line. We've introduced 2 more products with several color versions of those products in the last 3 weeks, and they're already doing really well. Nordstrom picked up one of the new product lines, and they'll be in 8 Nordstrom stores, including Dallas, which I know is a little far for you, but you can order them online as well. So they picked up products for the second time, and they'll be in through at least Christmas with their new product line. And as each level of growth we hit, we're actually seeing that the opportunities in the United States to manufacture get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like great growth. So who would be the ideal customer for this product?
Well, anyone who appreciates good design.
Yeah.
Several years ago,
My hand just went up. It's weird.
Yeah.
That's
Well, there's been a big shift in thinking, particularly with companies like Apple focusing on great design, where we're now all walking around with iPhones, which a great design is not just how it looks; it's how it works. And we think our product, and so our product works better in all scenarios. We make various products to meet certain needs, but it looks better and it functions better.
Yeah.
And so anybody that likes design, that appreciates design, and frankly has appreciation for the history of the development of electricity in the United States, I think is a potential customer. And there are a lot of people that enjoy good design simply because it brings joy to their lives. Have you ever opened up a box or gotten something? I mean, we all have our favorite, pair of jeans or sweatshirt or whatever it is. And the reason it's our favorite is it's it brings us joy. And
Right.
so the most rewarding thing about our product is something that you had said earlier, complimenting the product. But it's, when someone opens up the box for the first time and they see the pop of color on the powder coated finish, and they
Yeah.
smile, or they're like, "Oh my gosh, I hate extension cords. This is amazing. This solves such a problem that I've had," and it brings them joy. That's honestly the most rewarding feeling you can have
Yeah. That's all.
in developing a product.
And you've brought this up a handful of times, and I've caught on the sort of, I don't know, the vibe of the history of electricity, right? And when I'm looking at your site, like I looked at your logo, and I looked at, part of what my business does is look at sort of the branding and strategy of a company, and we nudge them. And I would do practically nothing with your branding because it seems to sort of call back to like the Edison days, like Edison's lab and that sort of thing. Did you do that intentionally? Was that sort of an homage to that era?
It was, and the font is a Gotham
Yeah,
bold font, which you probably recognized. And
yeah.
if you know
Oddly,
about Frank, I'm a huge, if you ever have a chance, maybe you've read it. There's a biography of Benjamin Franklin by Walter Isaacson.
oh yeah,
Are you
oh
familiar with that?
absolutely, oh yeah,
Yeah. So Walter Isaacson, for your listeners, is the same person who wrote the Steve Jobs
yeah,
biography, and he's just a fantastic author, and has an amazing career history. And you know, I'm a big fan of Ben Franklin's. Read that book, and Benjamin Franklin started out as a printer and a writer
hmm
and a communicator, and he invented fonts. He invented typefaces, and so a lot of things that are derived from Benjamin Franklin, including electricity. Well, it's also font, like Franklin and Franklin Gothic font comes from Benjamin Franklin, and
yeah,
so we derived our font with that in mind, with the idea that we wanted something that recognizes the history of it, but is also kind of fresh and modern. So we use the Gotham font, and then our icon is an ode to the humble streetlight,
yeah,
because one of the initial uses of electricity was to replace gas lanterns on streets and light up the streets of different cities. And so, that continues to exist today on every highway you drive on, where you see these tall poles and the lights that are coming off of them.
yeah.
And we felt it was a perfect mix. So thank you. That's a huge compliment. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I don't know how many people are going to look at it with that eye, but I just happen to be a huge geek about Franklin and Edison. Benjamin Franklin's on my list too.
Hmm.
So oddly, the only sort of modern person on that list is Steve Jobs, but and maybe it's a coincidence that they both have Walter Isaacson biographies. I don't know. Do you
No,
have a list like that? Do you have
I,
like?
I do have a list, and got it sounds like our lists are very
Yeah.
very similar. And my list isn't exclusive to people who are well known either. I have
No.
some family members and things that I are also on the list. I respect my father for starting a small business and building that. I respect my uncle, who actually invented many things, worked for General Motors for a long time, and was a big contributor to a car that was invented in the 1940s called the Tucker. I don't know if you know
Oh
that story
yes. Oh
of
yeah.
the Tucker, but we're inspired by history, even old cars, and so my uncle Warren Rice invented the Rice transmission for the Tucker, which was one of the most well-designed transmissions in history, and unfortunately the car company didn't make it. But it's kind of like Tucker was kind of like the Elon Musk of his time, just
Yeah.
with he was battling some things that he couldn't win. But Warren Rice, my uncle, he's not a really well-known guy, but I admire and respect just about anybody who's able to think of ideas and come up with ideas and um, put them into practice, or at least try. So
Yeah.
I have a long list.
We'll have to compare lists sometime and swap favorite biographies.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
So I had a okay. I want to ask this real quick, and then we'll get to. I want to also talk to you about any products that are coming up, and we can wrap up. But I noticed something when I was looking through your website. There's a feature on your product here, and it's this. And what are you calling it? I'm going to look back at my note for the language, but the tamper-resistant outlet.
Yes.
Right. So, okay, I had to ask because I recently watched a whole thing about outlets in the UK, and it was a sort of why UK outlets are better than US outlets, and
Yeah.
one of those was the sort of tamper-resistant flap that goes over it. Were you guys inspired at all by that sort of thing, or did you just come up with that idea on your own?
Well, I was actually inspired by my niece and my nephew. It was actually my nephew first because my niece wasn't born yet. But basically, I don't get it. If you look at any power strip, well, I do get it. I'll explain it. But if you look at any power strip, any multi-outlet extension cord that you can buy in a store,
Yeah.
the outlets are exposed. There's
Yeah.
no gate over them. What tamper resistance is it's a small closure inside the outlet that prevents something from getting in, so that it prevents electrical shock. And that's a big deal. More than 7 kids go to the emergency room every day because of electrical shock. And if you put that in perspective, those are just the kids that are being checked into emergency rooms. There are lots of people that never report their child, getting shocked by electricity in their home.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been shocked by electricity, but
I know
the
I
thing is,
have.
there's no reason for it. It's a simple methodology to prevent that from happening by putting these safety mechanisms in place. We are the only extension cord company with multi-outlet extension cords that are all tamper resistant. And the reason for that is that we have a partner in the components company that makes the tamper resistant outlets. And so they own the patent that they've won several litigation actions on in court. So, if you're not licensing their technology, you can't put their technology into your power strip, for example. And the power strips follow the same model as those cheap cords I found in Home Depot a little over a year ago when I went to look for a cord, which is cheaper, race to the bottom, low quality, just get someone something they can plug into. And so they want to eliminate costs, so they don't put tamper resistance in, and they don't want to pay license fees, so they don't, they don't integrate it. So I think that's crazy, and I wouldn't want to put a product like that into the home of my nephew and now my almost 6-month-old niece if it wasn't at least safe enough to be around them.
Yeah.
And so we try to integrate the technologies that are safer for the home as well.
Just more attention to the details of the quality of the product, which is awesome. I applaud you for
Thank you
for making that choice. Yeah, that is great. This is a fantastic product, and I say that without ever having put hands on it. But I know quality when I see it, and in the business I'm in, I mean, typically everything we do is digital, and I'm used to looking at user experience and quality from that side of things, but I have a huge appreciation for physical products that have that sort of love going into them. So congratulations, man. I mean, I can't wait to put my hands on one. I will find one. My wife and I are already talking about where we're going to put some in the home, so we're going to own some at some point.
What's your favorite color?
Oh man, I'll have to get back to you because that's going to be a Kevin's wife question more than a Kevin question.
You are as smart as you sound.
Oh yeah, I try. I've learned the hard way. So I just wanted to give you a chance now. Like, what products are coming up? Like, what's on the drawing board?
So this project has been very hard. Whenever you start from nothing and you develop a supply chain and things like that, it doesn't matter if you're Apple and you've got tons of resources, or if you're the founders of Shinola and you've got a lot of money, or a team that you can put in place and ramp up quickly. Things are still hard even in those cases. But to kind of be an independent entity or a single person trying to put pieces together, we've been really lucky in that we found great partners and we found people willing to say yes to us among the literally hundreds of no's, to find the factory who's our exclusive partner that does the the woven covering over the industrial cord we use in our flagship product, the Exto. Took me literally 205 phone calls. And someone asked me once, like, well, weren't you getting like really depressed when it was taking you so long? And my response was always no. I was getting more excited because it meant that it was kind of hard to do. And
Yeah.
if it's kind of hard to do, then there's going to be, if you do it right and people want it, there's going to be special value in that.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. And so I was getting more and more excited. And now that we have this flagship product that's taken off and is becoming more and more successful, and we're able to turn this from a product into a company, I can say you can extrapolate the ideas you see in this product across many other products for the electrical accessories market. Like, I don't need everything to be plastic and glass and super sleek and modern. And look, I love Apple and I love a lot of modern designers. We also want to give people the option of, being able to touch something that's woven with cotton, or uses, aluminum and steel, or I love ceramic and
Yeah.
leather and wood, such warm materials. And so, our plan is to continue building the company by going into other, offering more products that use the same types of materials, but in ways that fill everyday needs, basically. So, if you're extending power from one side of the room to the center, or maybe you need light in a certain place, or maybe you need something for traveling. Those are all things that we're looking at right now. We've got about 9 products in development that we think will be pretty successful, and we've shared them with our retail partners, and they're very excited about them. So all I can say is that we're going to maintain the same level of quality and the same attention to detail in everything that we do. And we just ask for people's support. We want to hear feedback. We love hearing requests for, can you do this color or that color? And ultimately, we want to get people or offer people an option that is a more friendly version of something they may have today that uses an American supply chain. And in some cases, it looks like we may be the first, and we're even talking about a campaign to help raise money to open a unique facility to do some of the things we're trying to do, because no one's really doing it in America. It all exists, overseas. And I think that's a tragedy. I think bigger companies can do better. I think Apple should be manufacturing more in the United States and not just using that as a marketing term. But, if they just posted like record profits on record iPhone sales, et cetera. So why can't they do more? Why can't they open more factories in the United States? And same with a lot of other big companies. Why can't we do more here? And so we're going to try to lead the charge. And if they take the baton and run with it, we're a tiny company, but we'd love to see that type of success.
Yeah.
And that's our plan. We plan on making great products of high quality in ways that are really friendly for people to use, and by supporting the local economies. And so we'll share those when the time is right, but it's going to be very soon, and I think it's going to be very exciting.
That's fantastic. And I think you're right. I think you guys are going to lead everyone else into this charge. So I wish you the very best, Kevin. This is it's fantastic. I'm floored by the whole thing. So if you would like to check out more about Conway Electric and Kevin Faul's line of these beautiful retro cool outlets, you should check him out online at conwaygoods.com, where you can also connect with them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, like I just did 30 seconds ago. And is there any other place online you guys that you want to direct people, or?
There are many places. Our local retailers, many of them operate their own online shops. If you have a shop near you, we encourage you to buy through your local retail store's online shop or in person. That supports them as well as supporting us, and we're okay. We're okay being the supplier and having people buy direct from their local stores. You can also buy from Nordstrom, at least through the holiday season. We've got products in Nordstrom. I think they're posting their product offering here within the next week or so. Nordstrom and Williams-Sonoma's Rejuvenation chain of stores, which are in LA, Berkeley, Portland and Seattle, and they're also dedicated to doing more American manufacturing. They've been a great partner of ours. You can buy them. I think it's rejuvenation.com as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, Kevin, thanks a lot for being on the show and chatting with me and talking to my audience. And I wish you the very best, dude. This is a very cool product. I get geek excited about it. So that's a good sign.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I appreciate your patience and your listeners' patience as I've answered with perhaps some long-winded,
That's what
coffee-fueled
it's all about.
answers. But I hope that if we inspire one person out there to go after something they've been thinking about going after for a little while, if we can get one person to take action and build something of their own, then I think that it was all worth it. And thanks so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, man. All right, everybody. Be sure to check them out at conwaygoods.com, and I will put, as always, everything in the show notes. So we will see you next week. So that was Kevin Faul and Conway Electric. And, again, I cannot tell you enough. My words are not doing it justice. None of the words in this podcast are doing it justice. You really just need to hop on over to conwaygoods.com and check out their catalog of these outlets, because they are ultimately they're crafted. That's the best way to describe it. Instead of it just being manufactured, this is a crafted product, and that it gives it this this automatic quality that you just don't see in typical products in that line. And I want to surround myself by things that have that kind of care built into them, that kind of love and passion built into them, because that inspires me, and it probably inspires you too. You may not even realize how much design influences the way you think about your environment and the way you feel. And having products like this just enhances that. So I'm really fascinated by it. I'm also equally fascinated by the history behind everything that Kevin has done with the company, right down to the font and the logo, which is, that's the sort of attention to detail that I don't know. It just warms my heart. it just brings me right back to this feeling of this idea of Edison in his lab, or pick your favorite inventor. I know some people don't like Edison. I don't know where that comes from exactly, but the idea of the inventor in his lab. Sort of this, somewhat dusty environment, maybe very industrial, but he's got all of his materials there. He's thinking through a problem, he solves the problem, and he gives that problem gives the solution to the world. So that's what Kevin Faul has done. That's what Conway Electric and Conway Goods, that's what the whole thing seems to be about. I'm a big supporter of that idea all around, so I hope you will be too. Go over to conwaygoods.com, check them out, and be sure if you drop by and contact them, let them know the Word Slinger sent you. The other Kevin, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger. At any rate, here we are toward the end of the show, and as always, I want to remind you to go to kevintomlinson.com/podcast, where you can listen in every week. You can leave me a voicemail, an email. Basically, you can get in touch with me any way you prefer. And be sure to subscribe on iTunes and rate the show, because that really helps me pick up a new audience and reach new people. And every week I try to bring you someone who is far more interesting than me, who has integrated story into his or her life and career. And through all this, I'm hoping that this makes everybody's story a little richer. So tune in every week. You can check it out on iTunes. You can check it out. I think it's available on, you can find it on Stitcher. At least on Stitcher, you can go to the website and find it. And as always, I love talking to every one of you. And please, give me some feedback. Let me know how we're doing here. Take care of yourselves. That's the music. It's all cool. And we will see you next week.
word slinger.